So, hey guys, today we have Anand Ramesh from London joining us in the podcast, and we will be asking some different set of questions to him. So, I guess it will be an informative session. So, let's start our session. Hi Anand, how are you?
Hello Manoj, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on the show. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I know you and I know what you do. So, for my audience, like I have a general question. That is my first question. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, you already said my name, so I am Anand Ramesh. Hello. I wear a lot of hats actually. It's very hard to put a pin on what I am. I am an animation, VFX, and film educator, and I'm presently a VFX trainer in DNEG London. Apart from this, I do a lot of online teaching and online mentoring as well. I am a tutor for platforms like Pluralsight, Udemy, and so on. And I do online mentoring on platforms like Access VFX, on SIGGRAPH Student Services. I am an alumni mentor or a MAV mentor, as they call it, for the University of Texas at Arlington, where I did my PG. So I am a mentor for their current students as well. Apart from this, I do a fair bit of script doctoring for films. I do subtitling for short films, and I'm also presently working on my sci-fi novel as well.
Super.
So yeah, I juggle quite a bit of things.
Yeah, it's a lot of things. I have one, so much relevant question. Like, because of COVID, and as you are an educator, every education related to visual effects and animation moving into online, right? So, do you think this works? And according to you, what's the proper way or syllabus for both animation and visual effects?
See, if you ask me if it works, I'll say yes and no, because it works to a certain extent. I won't say it works completely, but it works to a certain extent, because there are a few analog skills that come with animation VFX education, like sculpture or camera handling and so on, which you cannot teach virtually. You cannot teach these online. And moreover, we work in an industry, or we belong to an industry that is heavily reliant on teamwork. It is not a one-man show. So you miss that team play or that teamwork element when you go online with these classes. You cannot expect a huge level of teamwork or that level of camaraderie in that teamwork when it all goes online. But one more factor that we will have to consider here is that people do not come to art school or film school just for the lecturing. It's not only for the knowledge. They also come to these schools for easy access to equipment, which they'll not have otherwise. Because it is not purely feasible for anybody who's aspiring to get into this industry to have equipment like, say, a big workstation with a high-end graphic card, or a camera with a multitude of lenses. Today you can make an argument that you can shoot with an iPhone, you can shoot with a DSLR, even your smartphone can make films. But you need to understand, especially when it comes to a discipline like VFX, you need a deeper understanding of cameras, different kinds of lenses, because a cine lens works very different to a DSLR lens. You'll have to understand how a zoom lens reacts versus a prime lens. You will have to understand how lens distortion happens with spherical lenses, with different focal lengths. How will the lens distortion change? How chromatic aberration works in those big cine lenses. All these can be understood only by handling the equipment firsthand. For these kinds of things, definitely you will require the classroom presence or the physical presence, where you get the touch and feel of all the equipment, right? But on the other hand, you also belong to an industry which has a lot of digital skills. These skills can definitely be taught online. I mean, you don't really need to sit in a classroom to learn illustration, which you can do in any computer that can handle Photoshop or any simple drawing tool, even something like Autodesk Sketchbook. So there are lightweight tools that can help you. There are skills like your 3D skills and your software skills that you can teach online, because it will boil down to a simple issue of screen sharing and then looking at the students' work and giving them feedback. It is not going to be accomplished in the same time frame as you would in a normal classroom setting. It will probably take at least 1.5 or 2, even twice the time as a regular classroom setting when you do it online. But you can kind of circumvent all those and you can do a fair portion of it online. But if you ask me, we'll have to work a hybrid where we work on both an online scenario and a physical present scenario, where people can get the intention of the art school or a film school right.
Yeah. Got it. Like this is really new. Like I never thought this way. I am a person always believes like everything should go online, but I never thought in this way. Like if I need to access something physically, I can't invest like all these things in all these things.
Exactly. That is why we have the institution concept, because I remember when I used to study in Vancouver, we had a whole equipment room where we could go in and we could check out equipment. Even at that point, even a simple Wacom tablet was something that was unaffordable by students. So everything from Wacom tablets to video cameras for shooting reference to, green screens, all those could be just rented out from our school equipment room. We go do our shoot, come back, return the equipment, and that's it, done.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So like I have one more doubt regarding the education. Like when I was studying visual effects and animation, I took a course from like the starting of the course I was learning graphic designing, and then I moved into editing, then I moved into 2D animation and all those things. So according to you, like you think like graphic designing is really necessary to excel a career in digital compositing?
See, I will rephrase your question a certain way. When you were doing high school, did you think you will ever use trigonometry in your future?
No.
but just think back. Today, if you are doing an aim constraint on a camera, that aim constraint is trigonometry.
Like if you are doing something using expressions and all, I still misses my learning from my
So I will say no knowledge ever goes to waste. You will come back and use it at some point or the other. Here, especially when you talk about graphic design knowledge, think about it this way. In VFX, especially in VFX, I am saying, the three main pillars of VFX today are perspective, lights and colors. Yeah? Get these three right and you can sell a shot. And where does this color theory come from? This is from graphic design. Color theory is a graphic design principle. Your perspective and balance are graphic design principles. And even in a big budget VFX film, even you take a film like Star Wars or any Avengers or any huge film, there are shots which are entirely CG. And when it comes to shots that are even entirely CG, you are looking at core graphic design principles in composing that shot. So you definitely have use for all that, whether it is graphic design or editing. I mean, today freshers who are just entering into an institution like this and asking the same question, am I going to use editing when I go to a VFX studio? are probably not aware that every big VFX studio has an editorial department. We have a huge department for VFX editorial, we have a feature animation editorial. Every single big studio has its own editorial department. Hmm? Absolutely, absolutely. That's, see, the purpose of education is not getting you a job; it is getting you life skills.
Yeah, yeah, it's a misunderstanding actually. Like in India, most of the institutes have courses like they will cover up completely from graphic designing to visual effects, including animation and all those 3D. But everyone wants job after this course, so
No, so I just want to add to what you were saying.
yeah.
There. Now, all these curricula are also designed keeping in mind that these are fundamental skills that are going to be used in all areas of animation VFX.
Yeah.
Plus, you also have to look at the other side of it. You have some skill to fall back on. Especially if you are going to branch out and if you want to go out and start freelancing, for instance, you cannot expect an animation job or a compositing job every time when you are a freelancer.
Yeah.
Sometimes for your immediate requirement, you might have to end up doing a graphic designer stuff.
Of course, yeah.
That's the harsh reality of the day.
Got it. So like now there are a lot of trending topics in internet regarding the virtual filmmaking and cloud rendering and all. So as like I don't have much idea about these things, you must have a lot of knowledge about virtual filmmaking and cloud rendering, at least because you have to share that with your students and all. So or the trainees for you. So what's your view about the new tech trends like virtual filmmaking and cloud rendering? I'm really curious to know.
In fact, we just did a wonderful test on virtual filmmaking a couple of weeks ago.
Awesome.
And virtual filmmaking is something that is long pending, I would say, because imagine when you talk about filmmakers, you still have a lot of filmmakers around the globe who are not that tech savvy when it comes to utilizing the latest technology. So when you plan a shoot with them, when you have a shoot with a green screen or a blue screen, and you say, and you show a proof of concept or a previs and say this is how your shot is going to look at the end, a lot of them will not have a very clear picture of how the final image is going to be. Today, with virtual production, with virtual filmmaking and all that, you are bringing that gamut closer. You're closing that wall and that distance between the vision of the filmmaker and the technology. So you take a show like Mandalorian, for instance. That canvas is huge. The imagination of that team of directors at ILM and Lucasfilm, it's huge. And using real-time filmmaking technology and virtual production techniques, they were able to very clearly achieve that standard, because now you don't have to wait for a lot of compositing in the last step. You have a feel on the monitor right there. You can finish the shoot, you can come back and see on the monitor how the final image is going to be. So today it is a one-time investment, and you are using technology like game engines for this. So today if I want to do some set dressing in post, because another important thing that we are forced to acknowledge here is that not a lot of the directors actually spend time in the post-production room sitting and correcting the shots. Right? They have to wait for a final version that goes to the director's approval and then say, hey, maybe how will it be if I add another rock here? Then we'll have to go through the entire process one more time. Whereas there, if you have a ready-made set of assets, you're seeing the shot live on your monitor in real time. The director can say, hey, can we have one more rock there? All you have to do is drag and drop that rock and it's right there on location on your screen. So this makes the scope of filmmaking much broader. This gives a wider canvas for the filmmaker. And today, a director like Jon Favreau is able to do virtual scouting or virtual location scouting for films like Lion King. Today, he is able to wear a VR headset and look around the space and say, okay, this is where I want the shot to be. So, this kind of technology is giving you a greater what do you call it? I can call it flexibility, I can call it ease of access. That way there is no back and forth here. You can decide on the fly. And same thing with cloud renderings. And this I'm going to even tie it back to what we were talking before. Take the current COVID scenario. Today, your cloud rendering, you are able to store 1 gig of data on the cloud for as low as 20 cents per day. 20 cents per day is the Google Cloud rate for rendered images. And you have support for all the leading or most commonly used software on cloud platforms, whether it is Maya or Max or Cinema 4D or Blender, and whatever be your render engine, whether it's Arnold or RenderMan or Redshift or V-Ray or whatever your render engine is, whatever your software, whatever your major tool is, you are able to just at a click of a button do the complex rendering. See, scene assembly can be done inside that single computer, but if I had to invest in a render farm or if I have to wait for all the renders to come out from a single machine, it's going to be a colossal waste of time. See, today I remember a Pixar session that happened a couple of years ago where they were talking about render times, and what they were saying is Moore's law is holding good in the sense that with advances in technology, your total render time or the total output time is not going to change a lot because there is going to be greater utility for that technology. So even today, a Pixar film, if rendered on a single computer, is going to go as high as 7-8 hours per frame. Per frame, not per shot, per frame. So imagine for a 90-minute feature, how long it's going to take. And now it is going to be a simple case of uploading your scene file and all your textures to the cloud, specifying your frame range and the camera, say hit render, and when the render is done, they are going to send you an email saying, hey, your files are ready. You are going to download the files from an FTP server. That's it, done. So in the meantime, you can concentrate on working on another shot.
Yeah, we don't have to invest much things in render farm and all these things.
Absolutely. Studios don't have to physically invest in render farms now.
Yeah.
And this makes life easy for independent artists as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Independent artists are the ones benefiting heavily out of this.
Yeah.
And you go to conferences like SIGGRAPH,
Mm-hmm.
the representatives of these render farm companies are right there giving you coupons for $100, $200, saying, come on, try out my render farm.
Yeah.
I know students who have completed their entire final finally a project film with just these complimentary credits from render farms.
Yeah, but it's not like people in India are not aware of these things, I guess, at least.
No, even in India, people have been using render farms. Films like Bahubali and 2.0, they have been using render farms.
Yeah.
But it's just that we need to bring that into more common practice.
Yeah, into the pipeline of companies.
They should definitely feature in the pipeline. And one more thing which they don't understand is that by factoring in a render farm, your rendering cost is going to be reduced,
Yeah,
which means your budget can be used in other things.
yeah, got it.
This is going to help producers also.
Yeah, cool. You think like virtual filmmaking and all kills this compositing jobs and all?
Oh no, it cannot.
Okay, like we
See,
have final render images from this filmmaking, but like at least it will cut down some jobs, I guess. What do you think?
It will not cut down jobs. See, at the end of the day, even when you want a final composed look to be back projected on those LED walls, you still need the lighting artist, you still need the modeler, you still need the compositor to fine tune that look that goes onto the screen.
Yeah, there will be like if we use this LED screens and all, there will be chances of reflections and all, right?
No, you have a lot of anti-reflection stuff, and
Okay.
honestly, LED screens don't give you much reflection.
Okay, I have never seen that physically, so only the thing which I have read some articles regarding that, so I want to know more about that. That's why I asked. I was having this doubt, like there might be reflections.
Then I will say a very good place to go and check it out is on the Epic Games website, on the Unreal Engine webinars and blogs that they have.
They're doing a lot nowadays.
They are doing a lot, and they have a whole virtual production toolkit guidebook which you can download for free from the Epic Games website. So you can download that book for free, and there they give you a good rundown of everything. They give you a beautiful guide on what technology is being used, how to optimize your screens. They have a lot of detail there, and they also conduct a lot of webinars regularly to talk about virtual production. They even have a Facebook group for virtual production where you can go get all your queries clarified. You have a lot of very helpful artists there who will clear all your queries. It's a beautifully supportive community.
Yeah, got it. Because I subscribe Unreal Engine YouTube channel, and I will get a lot of updates daily, a lot of long videos.
They are doing a lot of work.
Yeah, but I'm not able to think like how they are giving it for free.
See, their logic, at least the way they put it, is they want to give it to the community, because even if you look at the revenue model of Unreal Engine, you start paying them a share only after each title crosses $1 million revenue mark.
Yeah.
In fact, if you go and read their FAQs, they have even asked that question. Boss, I have 2 projects, each of them has gotten $600,000. My total revenue is over 1 million. Should I pay you a share? No.
Cool.
After each title crosses 1 million, after each title crosses $1 million in revenue, you give me a share of the sales in that title alone.
Good. Like Blender also doing the same kind of thing, I think.
These guys are doing a lot of amazing work for the community.
Yeah,
This
of
is
course.
something we should definitely appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, I started learning Blender, and I couldn't believe, like, after seeing the output coming from Blender, it's somewhat more better than Maya, I guess. Like, I don't know much about Maya, but it's quite competitive.
Definitely, it is definitely competitive. See, at the end of the day, you are not going to go to a movie theater, sit in the chair, look at the screen, and wonder, this scene was done in Maya, this scene is done in 3ds Max, this was done in Modo.
Yeah.
You don't, you cannot say this was composited in After Effects, that was in Fusion, this was in Nuke.
Yeah, got it.
End of the day, it is the output that matters.
Hmm.
Today, photorealism and physically based rendering is a part and parcel of almost every major render engine.
Yeah, got it. If anyone decided to learn a software, is there any easy way to get an educational license? Like, what is the proper way for getting such a license in general? Like, I will get a lot of comments and like lot of questions asking like, where should I go and download this software and all this type of questions. So I always felt like you can opt for an educational license. So
Absolutely.
like most people don't know where they can get
Yeah.
this educational license. So can you share some insights on that?
Definitely.
Yeah.
See, Autodesk has its own educational licensing system. You have to go apply on the Autodesk website, register yourself as a student, and they give you a 3-year license.
Oh.
Foundry has the new non-commercial version, which has a few restrictions, but if your purpose is only learning, a non-commercial version is more than enough for you.
Cool. Yep.
I mean, you have restrictions like you cannot render more bigger than full HD, that is 1080p. You cannot have more than 10 Python nodes. You have a few restrictions like that.
Yeah.
You cannot export geometry out of it.
Got it.
There are a few restrictions, but for non-commercial, that's fine.
Just to learn, that's fine.
You're learning. Similarly, Houdini, they have the Houdini Apprentice license, which is completely free.
Oh, cool.
And you have even for Adobe, they have, if you go to the Adobe India website, they have a student and teacher pricing. If I'm not wrong, the last I checked, it was close to about 15,000 rupees for all the Adobe software, the complete Creative Cloud.
Okay. That's per year subscription?
15,000 rupees per user per year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But compared to the commercial price of the software, this is wonderful.
Yeah. Got it. Like,
And
yeah.
of course, apart from this, you also have all the legally free open source software. You have Blender, you have GIMP, you have Inkscape, you have a wonderful tool called Storyboarder, which I highly recommend to anybody who wants to get into storyboarding. You have Blackmagic Resolve, you have Fusion, which has a free version.
Yeah.
You have Natron, which is almost a similar interface to Nuke.
Yeah.
Even software which is used in big studios like ILM and DNEG, like Claris. You go to the Isotropics website, they have a personal learning edition. So there are perfectly legal, straightforward ways just through the software vendor's website to get education license.
Yeah. Also, you can get the support from their community also.
Yeah, and in fact, in the case of Foundry, for instance, if you are registered as a student, you get a 1 year free education collective that includes your Nuke, Modo, Mari, Katana, everything.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
You have to register with your proper school email ID, and you'll have to provide the student ID card as a proof of registration that you are currently enrolled in the school.
Great insights.
And all the websites also have a lot of information on how to get this.
People don't want to spend time on this, I guess. They want the full versions for just learning.
I mean, full versions. Tomorrow a recruiter is not going to look at your reel and see an Arnold watermark on your render and judge you for it.
Yeah, never it gonna happen.
They know your students. In fact, I'll tell you something. If you say you rendered it through the student version of Maya with the student version of the Arnold render, that will actually get you brownie points in my book.
Yeah.
That means you did things the right way. You did not go about pirating a software and doing something illegal.
Got it.
You're doing things the right way, and I'll appreciate you for
Yeah, beautiful. Plus points.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, like, I have one more question, like regarding your teaching.
Yeah.
So, I have seen
Yeah.
your courses and all in Udemy. So, what's your
Uh-huh.
experience of teaching in Udemy?
Udemy was a fun experience. I started off first in Pluralsight back when it was Digital Tutors.
Yeah, long back.
Yeah, I started there in 2013.
Okay.
So I published courses there, and then in 2016 I started publishing for Udemy.
Mm-hmm.
It is, again, this was just a case of sharing knowledge.
Yeah.
I know something, might as well share it with people.
Hmm.
It is the same thing what we are doing here in this interview here.
Yeah, podcast. Yeah.
I know something and I am ready to share it with people. That's all. So it was with the same intention that I started teaching, whether it was Pluralsight or Udemy or any of these mentoring platforms that I am a part of today.
Hmm.
See, today I will declare outright now.
Mhm.
If you any of you guys who's listening to this want any tips and tricks, or if you just want an additional pair of eyes to look at your work, give you feedback, hit me up. I'm always ready.
Yeah. We'll add that in the description of this video, so people can reach
Absolutely,
you
absolutely.
more easily.
Please, I'm more than happy to.
Yeah. You have audience, like a rush of audience in Udemy.
You can say that I have about 300, 400 students in Udemy, because again, I put it out there. I won't call myself a genius in marketing it.
Yeah. Like, I just want to know, like people are interested in Udemy, learning from Udemy and or not. I was eager to know.
I am not the greatest in marketing it,
Yeah.
but my courses are right there. I don't think they are incredibly overpriced or anything either. I think
Of
the
course
highest price for any of my courses is only about $25 or something. That is probably the discounted price, the price of other courses you will get after discount, but that is the flat out rate for my courses. I would happily give these away for free also. It is just that the Joker taught me one thing: if you're good at something, don't do it for free.
Free, of course. Yeah. That's
Just so it is not taken for granted, I put a price tag on it. That's it.
Yeah, so that people can value that also. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So according to you, like, which is the best animation or visual effects? Like, which is best animation or visual effects for finding job easily? And is there any websites you follow to know about the open positions in animation and visual effects?
See, this is like matchmaking. A job hunt is actually matchmaking.
Yeah, now people are mostly like the trending topic is like visual effects don't have much projects, and also future is completely CG. Some kind of that controversial things is going on.
I will not say future is completely CG, but in the immediate future, or I won't even say immediate future, things are changing. I'll say in the current scenario,
Yeah.
today probably
Tomorrow.
animation will give you more jobs than VFX because of the delay happening in resuming shoots.
Yeah.
That's all. Once the shoots are back online, once people go back onto the location and start shooting film,
Mm-hmm.
VFX is going to get back on track.
Again, yeah.
Nothing is going to change it. Right?
Yeah.
So, it is absolutely a matchmaking process. Today, I have a few requirements as a studio. You have those skills as an artist.
Hmm.
So, you come work for me. So, today, if a studio has a project that requires 100 roto artists, roto artists are going to be in high demand.
Hmm.
Similarly, tomorrow, if the studio starts a feature animation project, and in the beginning of a project, modelers are going to be in greater demand.
Yeah.
As the project progresses, once the modeling phase is done, and now when it moves into the animation phase, now animators are going to be in greater demand. If you are looking at something like an episodic system, a studio where they do a series animation or television animation, for instance, there you will have a lot of demand for all the disciplines, keeping they'll just keep flowing in. So there's no real answer to whether animation or VFX is better for getting a job. You have good skills, you'll get a job. But that doesn't at any point say you should stop updating yourself. You should keep updating yourself constantly. And I mean, if you are a specialist in animation, I mean, today the word specialist doesn't really hold any value. Let's say your strong point is animation. Doesn't hurt to learn a bit of rigging, doesn't hurt to learn a bit of effects. If you are strong in modeling, doesn't hurt to learn some texturing. Doesn't hurt to learn some rigging again.
Got it.
So, if you like lighting, learn some compositing with it. If you like compositing, get a feel for roto prep also.
It helps.
It definitely helps. Today, especially with things going majorly virtual, boutique studios are going to be getting a lot of jobs. And boutique studios will prefer generalists over specialists.
Of course.
And the question of animation versus VFX is not going to exist. Do you think a Godzilla or an Optimus Prime can come to life without an animator? The entire animation pipeline exists in the VFX studio also.
Of course. Got it.
The only difference, if at all you look at it, is the involvement of a live plate. And the final compositing where you have to match the CG plate to the live plate. So apart from that, whether it is animation or VFX, jobs are going to continue to exist. Even today, if the shoots are not happening, today, how do you think a channel like Netflix or Amazon is able to churn out content so regularly? There are people working for those kinds of shows also.
It's still happening.
Absolutely.
As in other industry, like it's all about demand and supply. We could tell like that. Any day, any industry boils down to demand and supply. Like I know some of my friends who are like working as a digital compositor, but they do 3D kind of works. I mean, I used to see their works in LinkedIn and all, and it looks so amazing. So they are just like they are learning all these things. So it's better to be like multi-skilled.
Absolutely. See, let me give you example from my own experience. When I studied animation in Vancouver, my specialization was animation. I was a rigger and animator. I was a decent rigger and a decent animator. Then I got into stereo 3D. Then I got into compositing. Then I got into lighting. Then I got into modeling. So then I started fiddling around with real-time editing, game engines. Today I can confidently say there has been a point. Now, before moving to DNEG, I was the head of the animation department for a college in Sri Lanka. So they were delivering the curriculum of a British university in Sri Lanka. I have actually taught every single subject in all the 3 years. So at some point or the other, whether it is a tool or a technique or a discipline, it's very good to keep updating yourself. So today I can comfortably talk modeling terminology and compositing terminology. That definitely helps in the long run.
Got it. Beautiful.
Well, when it comes to finding jobs, there are a lot of job sites. Like you start with the easiest and most accessible, LinkedIn. LinkedIn gives you a lot of openings. Then you have specialist websites like Creative Heads or Animated Jobs, where you get only jobs related to animation, VFX, and game design.
Yeah.
So it is a free subscription. Every week they'll send you a job alert.
Oh, cool.
You'll know what's happening there.
Cool.
So apart from that, even if you dig deeper in your regular job sites in India, even something like a Naukri.com gives you a lot of animation jobs. You probably, if you try it, you'll know. And if you're looking for jobs abroad, you have websites like Indeed, Recruit.net,
Yeah.
and of course you can also use Glassdoor. That's a beautiful resource to get an idea of the kind of pay you get in different jobs and what kind of jobs are there in different studios.
Got it.
And definitely keep a tab on all the studios that you want to work for, because the first place any studio is going to advertise for a job is its own website.
Yeah.
So keep a tab on all the major studio websites, especially their career portals. They'll keep giving you openings frequently, regularly.
Yeah.
So those are the bare basic things that you will need in a job hunt.
Yeah.
And of course, when you're using LinkedIn or any social network for that matter, before you start applying for a job, maintain your social media profile is neat.
Yeah.
You don't want something that you don't want your employers to see.
Yeah. Any unwanted stuff.
Yeah.
Like some people treats LinkedIn like Facebook. So
Oh yeah. Don't.
that's little weird, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, we have heard stories where people were fired because of tweets they made so many years ago. I'm not naming anyone, but we know.
yeah. Which are some of the movies and books you would like to suggest to my audience? Some general advice.
When it comes to movies, make no exception. Watch everything. There is absolutely no hard or false rule on what to watch.
Yeah.
Watch everything, right from the silent films to what is out in an OTT platform today. Watch everything, and don't restrict yourself to movies. Watch a lot of series also.
Yeah.
A lot of episodic stuff is doing some amazing animation VFX.
Yeah. Game of Thrones example.
Yeah, I mean Game of Thrones, Watchmen,
Yeah.
Chernobyl, Mandalorian. You have a lot of amazing episodic content also coming out, and you always learn something or the other from everything. Whatever you see, you may think it is non-technical and you may not have anything. You look back to the old masters. You watch a Hitchcock movie, there's no animation or VFX there. But take for instance a movie like Rope by Alfred Hitchcock. The entire movie gives you an impression that it was done in one shot, a single shot. This is a very old movie. I'm guessing probably 50s. I'm guessing long back. It is one of the old black and white classics of Hitchcock. But and remember, that was at a time when you are shooting on film. So the film roll will end and you will have to necessarily stop the camera, take the old roll out, feed the new roll and continue the shoot. But that editing is so seamless that you don't notice the cut anywhere. Things like that. You look at films by the Japanese filmmaker Ozu. All his films, you only have a single focal length, the camera pointing up. This is the focal length for 95% of his shots, and this is the angle. It won't change at all. But the storytelling in that is so immaculate. And even why movies? You even go back, look at the paintings from the old masters. There is so much to see in that. Look, study film movements like I'll say like film noir or the French New Wave, neorealism. Look at films from all these eras, and you can see how the socio-political scenario of that time resulted in the movie making of that style. So you take a film noir movie like let's say The Maltese Falcon or Double Indemnity.
Okay.
These are movies that are at least 50 years old, more than 50 years old.
Mm.
So in movies like this, in fact even these are movies from the 40s, early 50s. Come on, 70 years old.
Mm.
You can learn lighting techniques from these movies.
Of course.
There is something to learn out of everything.
Everything.
Today, if you take a film like Toy Story 4, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
they have used a technique called the split diopter lens.
Mm-hmm.
You guys can go Google what that is. That is a very analog film technique
Oh.
where you cheat depth of field by having a split down the middle and having two different areas in focus.
Yeah.
It is not deep focus photography, but the seam between the two lens partitions can be seen. So things like these you learn by observing films.
Yeah. Got it.
If you look at that shot of Woody and Forky walking down the road,
Mm-hmm.
you can see the camera just following them as they keep talking
Yeah.
on the road.
Mm-hmm.
If you take a parallel of that, you can see that technique followed in Woody Allen's films.
Mm.
You take films like Manhattan, you would see four people talking and you will see the camera moving as it follows their conversation.
Mm.
So these are, there are things that can be learned from every single film. So definitely see all films, anything you can get your hands on, any language. Thankfully today you have something called subtitles.
Yeah, got it.
And when it comes to books again,
Yeah.
do not skimp on your reading habit. Reading is a wonderful, wonderful habit that I am so sad to see dying.
Yeah.
You have amazing books that can give you a lot of insight into the industry, into the techniques. You have books like Animator Survival Kit, you have Acting for Animators by Ed Hooks,
Mm-hmm.
you have Harold Whittaker's Timing for Animation, and you have Frank and Ollie's Illusion of Life.
Mm-hmm.
You have Eric Goldberg's Character Animation Crash Course.
Mm-hmm.
You have books like Drawn to Life or Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at production design, you have books like Dream Worlds, or you have cinematic motion, shot by shot. And even for effects, you have books like Elemental Magic.
Oh.
And if you look at storytelling and storyboarding side of things, you have books like Prepare to Board, you have Directing the Story, you have the Visual Story, you have 5 C's of Cinematography, and you have all these art of books that are published by all the studios as a companion to their films.
Yeah.
Like the Art of Toy Story, Art of How to Train Your Dragon, Art of Madagascar. You have all these art of books.
Yeah.
And you have a wonderful book called Stop Staring, which is extremely helpful for facial animation.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to visual effects, you have Ron Brinkman's book Art and Science of Digital Compositing.
Compositing, yeah.
You have Jeffrey Okun, the BS Handbook of Visual Effects.
Yeah.
You have Steve Wright's
Digital compositing. Yeah.
Digital Compositing for Film and Video.
Yeah.
You have Jeremy Burns' Digital Lighting and Rendering.
Mm-hmm.
You have Lighting for Animation, which is written by Jasmine and Michael, two senior lighting artists of Blue Sky Studios.
Nice.
You have even for things like stop motion. You have books like stop motion handbook, stop motion filmmaking. You have camera tracking books like The Invisible Art of Camera Tracking.
Wow.
You have lots of books that you can get your hands on.
Yeah.
And of course, it's also good to learn a lot of animation history, like books like World History of Animation, for instance, or books on Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli.
Yeah.
I mean, books are an amazing resource.
Yeah. Like I mean, I just forgot all these names because there were a lot. But
I can send you a list, no worries.
I will add all that in the description.
I will definitely send you a list.
Yeah, like not in olden times, like when I was studying and all, I was not having this resource known as internet before me to get all these things in my hand. Now we have internet.
I know, same here.
Yeah, so everyone have access to all of these books and all these resources. So
I remember back in the day we used to go to these SIGGRAPH conferences, and the SIGGRAPH conference used to have its own bookstore.
Oh.
And there, I know I have spent hundreds of dollars just getting books. You go to a conference in Tokyo or Hong Kong or anywhere. I have a budget only for buying books.
Yeah. Can you share some experiences of your SIGGRAPH visits and all?
Oh yeah, I have been consistently attending SIGGRAPH conferences since 2011. Only 2019 I was not able to go. All the other years I made it a point to attend.
Yeah.
These conferences, I mean, I attend SIGGRAPH, though I would also like to attend a lot of other conferences. There are lots of conferences that bring you closer, especially for the sake for networking. You get to meet a lot of people. You get to interact with a lot of industry veterans. You get to see good knowledge exchange. You get to have a good peer network. In fact, I had a pure 45-minute one-on-one chat with Richard Hoover, the VFX supervisor of Blade Runner 2049.
Cool.
One-on-one, just like I'm chatting with you now, across a table. It was just me and him sitting and talking for 45 minutes.
Nice.
Similarly, I had a same chance with Mr. Matt Aitken, VFX supervisor of Avengers Endgame.
Nice.
Same thing, across the table, one-on-one.
Is it for
sitting
DINUG?
and talking to people like that?
Is it for DINUG or you personally?
No, personally.
Okay, cool.
These were also not discussing industry trends or discussing how there could be an industry academia collaboration. In fact, after that discussion with Richard Hoover, he gave a nice 2-hour Skype talk to my students in Sri Lanka.
Nice. Cool.
So imagine where this is the kind of networking I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's all about networking.
It's all about networking. Today it is not only about what you know, it is also about who you know.
Yeah.
Networking is
Obviously.
a key aspect in this industry.
Yeah.
because otherwise you do not get a chance to sit adjacent to an Oscar winning director and talk about his film.
Got it.
Probably if there is this whole Facebook album I have which has just these fanboy moments with those people. Standing and talking to the people, like the producer of Lord of the Rings, or the director of Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah.
Imagine just one-on-one, standing and talking to them for half an hour, 45 minutes, nobody to disturb you.
Got it.
And even not just supervisors and directors like this, even people, I don't know how many of you have heard of this gentleman called Josh Tam. He's, I mean, he almost single-handedly developed a lot of the simulation systems we use in Maya today.
Oh, great.
And with that kind of a genius scientist having a platform like this, talking one-on-one, and we were talking about things like prime numbers and linguistics and whatnot.
Cool.
So that is the kind of thing, because people like these, they are also keen on sharing their knowledge.
Yeah.
You go talk to them, you'll be surprised at how ready they are to talk to you.
Yeah. The same feeling I am having now, like I'm speaking with you, the same feeling I am having, because I'm getting a
Come on.
lot of insights from you.
Come on, again, this is again me sharing my knowledge,
Yeah.
my experience. That's
I
all.
understand. Yeah, I understand.
See, I very firmly believe that my knowledge is not going to get depleted because I share it with someone.
Mhm.
By means of this exchange, I may pick up a few pointers from you now.
Yeah, got it.
By sharing knowledge, all you get is more knowledge.
Mm.
So people are ready to share knowledge, even on LinkedIn. If you connect to some top supervisor or a TD or a team lead in a big studio, you send them your work, you ask them for feedback, they'll give you.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So attending these conferences is more for the networking.
Got
See,
it.
I met people like Patrick Lynn, who is a director of photography in Pixar Animation Studios. He's the DOP of Toy Story 4, Ratatouille, Up, and all these amazing and all these movies.
Some movies, yeah.
Today, I maintain a very good friendship with him to a point where I just feel like venting or ranting something. I just pick up my Facebook Messenger, I message him, and he replies. We get to chatting. Similarly, Ed Hooks, the author of Acting for Animation,
Mm-hmm.
amazingly down to earth, extremely jovial person.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of, I think last week, Asifa India had a webinar with him. I don't know how many people got to see it, but if I'm not wrong, the replay video is still available on their Facebook page. You can go check it out. You can see the kind of enthusiasm he has when he's interacting with people.
Cool.
So, attending conferences, it is again through a SIGGRAPH conference that I got to meet him
Yeah.
back in 2008. That network, that friendship, it's continuing. It's a beautiful thing to have.
Got it. like most of the people nowadays using LinkedIn a lot to share their works, to get reviews to their works and all. So I'm really happy to see that.
Definitely, LinkedIn is an amazing resource. Use it properly, use it wisely.
Yeah. Okay, so
Don't turn LinkedIn to Facebook.
yeah. So
Yeah.
which are some of the YouTube channels you follows related to VFX and animation?
I follow a lot of channels to a point where my phone doesn't stop beeping saying, hey, you have a new video here, you have a new video here. See, to begin with, most of your tool vendors like your Autodesk, Foundry, SideFX, Isotropics, Unreal Engine, Unity, all these people, all these companies have their YouTube channels where they constantly publish either webinars or workflows or tutorials or new features coming up in the new release.
Yeah.
That is the easiest way to stay up to date with what is happening.
Got it.
Plus, follow all the top studios. Studios like DNEG, MPC, ILM, Method, Mill, Pixar, Disney, Blue Sky, DreamWorks. They publish a lot of content regularly as well.
Like breakdowns and all.
They publish their breakdowns, they publish making of stories, they do the storyboard and final film side by sides, they do script to screen,
Yeah.
they do a lot of stuff. And similarly, just like you follow top studios and the software companies, follow top schools also.
Got it.
Because tomorrow, as a fresher, when you're going into the industry, you have to know what your competition is like. So when the schools start publishing their student work and their show reels and stuff, you will know that is the kind of work that is coming out from a fresher in a different part of the world. And it is very likely he's your competitor for the same job.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody can deny that they want to work in one of the top 5 studios in the world.
Yeah.
So, if you are applying for a job in Disney or Pixar or DNEG, he is also going to apply for the same job. So you can use that as a measure to how to upskill yourself.
Yep.
You can see different storytelling techniques. You can learn from other student reels. Similarly, you have a lot of amazing channels like Mike Hermes, you have Hugo's Desk, you have Keep Calm, I'm in VFX.
Yeah.
I'm so happy. I'm working along with Ludo.
Oh, Ludo,
Who's
yeah.
running Keep Calm, I'm in
Let's
VFX.
keep. Yeah, I know. It's amazing.
Amazing,
His channel
right?
is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those Matt
Keep
Payne
Calm, I'm in
movies and all.
VFX.
I used to see that.
And Alan Mackay.
Yeah.
You have a lot of webinars coming out from Escape Studios.
Yeah. Follows him.
You have the GDC channel, the Game Developers Conference. They do a lot of gaming related videos.
Yeah.
You have the ACM Seagraph channel. You have places like Boost FX. You have the Art of Aaron Blaze. Or
You follow
his
Filmmaker
website
IQ?
also, Creature Art Teacher.
Do you follow
Sorry?
Filmmaker IQ?
Oh yes, Filmmaker. I follow Filmmaker IQ. I follow Nomon. I follow No Film School. I follow like a gazillion channels. And even you have lots of resources like Love Life Drawing.
Yeah.
You have Make Games with Katie. That's a relatively new channel that started a couple of months ago.
Okay.
For Unreal Engine. You have Blender Guru.
Yeah.
You have Flip Normals. You have 9 Between who did some amazing tutorials for Houdini.
Oh, okay. Cool.
There are lots of channels, and of course, I'm talking to one right now. Let's not forget that guy.
Yeah. Thank you.
We have to use these resources.
Yeah. It's all about sharing knowledge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Today, if you look at, let's say, a VFX breakdown published by a big studio, for all you know, you might have gone to the theater, you might have seen the movie thinking a particular segment of it was live action.
Yeah.
Then you will look at the VFX breakdown and you will have a facepalm moment.
It happened.
God, was that VFX?
Yeah. It happened many times.
Yeah, it happens so many times.
Yeah.
So, it is definitely good to see what people are doing.
Yeah.
And always think about it in circles. What is happening locally in your state or city, what is happening in your country, what is happening in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Because the first inner circles are the circles that are more accessible to you. Tomorrow, if you want to go apply for a job in a company, or if you want to go work for a company abroad, it is very likely that they are going to ask for experience, or they are going to ask for some level of qualification, because a company that is getting you a visa has to first prove to its government that no internal candidate who applied for the same job was qualified enough for this.
Yeah.
So there is always going to be a greater success rate with the local market. So don't just confine yourself to looking at markets abroad. Look at your local markets also. See what kind of work is happening.
Got it.
And all the studios have their own pages. They publish videos very regularly.
Yeah.
And even, I mean, coming from an Indian perspective, you have a lot of events in India. You have MIPCOM, you have the GAFX happening, and honestly, in 2020,
Everything
most
is online.
conferences have gone virtual.
Online. Yeah.
Everything is on demand. I don't know how many of you got a chance to attend the virtual edition of the Lightbox Expo.
Mm-hmm.
The Lightbox Expo was amazing for anybody who wanted to get into 2D animation, storyboarding, or anything on that side, character designs and all that.
Yeah.
The registration for that conference was $1.
People are concentrating on TikTok ban and all these things. Don't have time for gaining information or gaining knowledge from all these conferences and all. Like,
I mean, I'm not going to say any information is bad information.
of course, people should spend
Yeah,
some time learning all these things.
It's good to have a good mix of things.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had been only concentrating on animation and VFX, I wouldn't start writing my book now.
So this question, even I am waiting for your answer. So any general tips or tricks to be successful in career and work?
There are some very, very simple things which I'm sure all of you would have heard a gazillion times from a lot of people.
Yeah.
Always keep learning. You have to be on the top of your game at all times. You cannot afford to stop learning or stop upgrading yourself. You need to keep upgrading yourself constantly. Second, you can never afford to lose passion. Just think of it from this angle. Today you are looking at a joke in Toy Story or How to Train Your Dragon, and you are laughing out loud sitting in the theater. Imagine that the writer of that joke wrote it 4 years ago. Imagine what level of confidence he should have on himself to believe that that joke would be relevant after 4 years when it comes to the screen.
Correct.
And third, be willing to share your knowledge. Because the more you share your knowledge, the more you will get. Fourth, there's always something to learn from everybody. Remember that. Today, I will proudly say that my student and I entered in the same competition and he won. I will say this proudly today. I am happy my student is more skilled than I am. I mean, isn't that what we are all aiming for?
Of course.
And again, maintain a good work-life balance, because it is very easy to get a burnout.
Of course.
If you burn out, then that's almost the end of the road for you. And get into the habit of taking feedback at its face value. Feedback is not personal. No supervisor or no teacher has anything personal against you when they are giving you a feedback.
Yeah.
Both of you want the same thing. You want that shot or that project to become better. So remember that.
Cool.
And this is probably the most important tip, I'll say.
Yeah.
I'll have a tip or trick or whatever you want to call it. Learn to have fun.
Yeah.
If it is not fun, it is not worth it.
Got it.
I mean, today there is enough and more stress causing factors around you instead of you adding to that list on your own.
Yeah.
Don't start piling on stress on yourself. Have fun. I mean, you quite honestly, you are in an industry. You're getting paid for something that other people turn to for entertainment.
Yeah,
How much more fun can it be?
it can be.
Dude, you play video games, I make them.
Yeah.
You watch a cartoon, I make them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you stop having fun, if you stop laughing, that laugh for all you know, that laugh can be at yourself. You can laugh at yourself. You might have seen advice from top animators who say if you have to get facial animation done properly, have a mirror or a webcam in front of you and do those expressions.
Yeah.
I mean, craziness and weirdness are built-in factors for us. Embrace it, live with it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
That is the way to be successful in any in especially this career, but in any career also.
Amazing, beautiful. Like, I've got a lot of insights, not only these tips and tricks, and also a lot of things. So I just want to know,
Anytime.
like, what's your dream or ambition with your career? I know you are successful with your career, so I just want to know what's next.
Success is very subjective, Manoj.
Yeah.
I mean, right at the beginning of this talk, I told you I wear a lot of hats. So each hat sits on a head that has its own dream.
Yeah.
Every time I wear a new hat, I'll get a new dream. I mean, on one side, the educator in me or the academic in me wants to create a platform for free animation VFX education that can be delivered at the global standards, totally accessible, free of cost for everybody.
Wow.
That is a long time dream for me.
Yeah.
Another hat, when I wear the filmmaker hat, my dream is to direct an animated feature,
Yeah.
to make an animated feature.
Superb.
You know, when I wear the writing hat, I want to write a bestseller. So every time, new hat I wear, I get a new dream.
New dream.
But jokes apart, you look at something what Finland has done very successfully. The Finnish education system is is almost the best in the world.
Yeah. Even I heard about like the Finland education things.
You go talk to the teachers in Finland, they'll tell you this. They'll say we don't believe in people choosing a residential area based on the school. If somebody asks a person what is the best school around here or what is the best school in that area, they'll say whatever is the closest to you, that is the best.
Amazing.
That confidence comes only when there is standardization of that education.
Yeah.
And when that standard is so high that people do not feel the need to differentiate.
Yeah.
And in so many countries, education is free.
Yeah.
So there has to be a day, and if I can contribute to it in any way, I'd be most happy to. There has to be a day where we realize this dream of a free platform for animation, VFX and film education. That is something that is very close to my heart. I hope to see that come alive someday and hope to be a part of that change.
Yeah, if any help I would do, like I could do, I will be happy to do that.
I'll take all the help I can get.
Yeah, my YouTube channel is an example for that, because I have never earned a single dollar from that, but I'm doing that for the past 4 years. So
see, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'll take all the help I can get. We need people with the same mindset like yourself.
Yeah. Got it. So like
But it will
yeah.
happen
So
someday.
yeah, I wish you all the best for that.
Thanks.
So we have like shared a lot of things through this podcast. So I'm really happy to have you here. So I
My
would
pleasure,
like
Manish.
to hear some comments about Madlux UFX and about myself too. So I will be more than happy, and I will be like, okay, so you understood what I'm telling.
Yeah. See, from the bottom of my heart, Manoj, I sincerely applaud you for the kind of work you have been doing.
Yeah,
Because
you can give me some, like, if there is anything needs to be improved, you can give that also as an advice.
see, I will never say improve this and improve that.
Hmm.
Because I firmly believe that all of us should at all times be performing to the best of our abilities.
Hmm.
And I wholeheartedly believe you are.
Thank you so much.
See, that is something I believe in my students also. See, that is why even if somebody comes and asks me for any opinion on their reels or videos, I send feedback for 3 pages, 4 pages. And several times I have lost people like that also. They don't come back to me.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this. The kind of work that you have been doing, hunting people all over the world and getting their thoughts, sharing this with your viewers. I don't know, I have been seeing all your videos. In fact, a couple of my students have also given their interviews for you. I'm so happy about that.
Cool.
So that you need that kind of energy flowing in this industry,
Yeah.
and you are taking the time apart from your regular employment.
Yeah.
You are doing this as a passion project, is what I'll call it.
Of course.
So there is no right or wrong way for a passion. If I can be of any help in expanding your network, connecting to artists or supervisors anywhere and thought leaders anywhere, I'll be glad to. Because people need as much information as they can get.
Yeah.
Any information that comes their way, there is a lot of scope for content consumption here.
Of course.
Keep doing this. Keep doing all of this.
Thank you so much, because even I know like how much hard work I'm doing for doing contents regularly, because we have like, in visual effects how we works, how many hours we
Yeah.
works. So with going to the work and also doing all these contents, it's very tough, but sometimes all these words gives me motivation to do much more. So yeah.
You will have my thumbs up all the time. Keep doing this.
Thank you so much. So I think we can conclude this podcast here, and
Sure.
you have any final comments or anything to say?
The only thing I always say, if any of you think I can be of any service
Yeah.
in anything, whether it is just looking at your work or giving you some guidance on where next,
Yeah.
hit us up.
I will add your link in
And
the
never
description.
lose your passion.
Of course.
Just keep doing it.
Thank you so much, Anand. So we will conclude here. Thank you guys. Thank you for
Sure.
joining with us.
Thank you guys.
Bye bye.
Stay safe. Have
Yeah.
fun.